Now that we've gotten up and walked around,
Yeah.
mine have hit a lot more.
Really?
Yeah.
Mine's still are at a reasonable level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not like a zoo. I'm not like last time.
Oh god, we were gone.
Yeah. So, immersion.
Immersion.
Immersion's our topic of the day.
You know what? What's something you think you do that helps the immersion?
Before we do that,
Okay.
the question over here.
Okay.
Let's what do you define immersion as?
Immersion. I think immersion is when you are playing this character, right?
Right.
And while you're playing this character, that sense of immersion comes in when you no longer feel like you're playing a character.
Yeah.
Where you feel like you're just
Experiencing
being you.
it.
Kind of like when we go to LARP and an NPC goes out of their way to do some extra cool makeup on their face, and we're like, fuck, we're there.
Make it like
It's like when Craig gets down on all fours and starts
like the guy from Vikings Blood.
Yes.
I'm
gonna see if I can find that clip and put that in.
Yeah, because that needs some explanation.
Oh.
Okay, so kind of like all of the stuff that happens within a game to make you feel more like you're there.
Yeah, when you no longer feel because there are moments where you feel like when you don't feel like you're playing a game.
Yeah.
When you forget you're playing a game and you're just you're so invested in the story.
Yeah.
And you feel like you are this character, that's immersion.
Okay. I almost feel like I don't know, my brain immediately made this like stoner connection of chess has no immersion.
Okay.
So people are like, oh, I'm just playing chess.
Yeah.
But when somebody's like, oh, I'm playing D&D and I'm immersed, they don't go, oh, I'm playing D&D. It's always, I'm playing D&D and then they list like, they tell it like it's a personal story.
Yeah.
Because
the thing is, it is a personal story.
Yeah.
D&D is a collaborative storytelling game, so it's always like, and the thing is about it is you tell a story together, so they have such a big part in that story that it is their personal story.
But what about I was thinking about this as we tossed around this as a topic.
Okay.
What about video games and stuff?
So that gives, I believe, a different type of immersion.
Yeah.
Because you always put yourself in the shoes of the main character.
Yeah.
Because you're playing this character. When you're playing...
So the one that immediately comes to my mind is Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's where I was going to go.
Because, and this is exactly what I thought of earlier, at one point during Red Dead Redemption 2, slight spoilers, you're in that hot air balloon.
Yeah.
You remember that part? Mm-hmm. And I
love that.
It was good. And I had a friend be like, Chance, aren't you afraid of heights? How did you handle that level? And I was like, at that point, I was so immersed that I got over my fear of Arthur's not afraid of heights.
That's exactly. And you're like, I'm Arthur. Arthur's not afraid of heights.
And it was the weirdest experience. I was like, this is fine.
It works. So I found that works the same way with LARPing.
Yeah.
Like that's how some people have gotten over fears and shit and use LARP as a pseudo therapeutic. LARP is not therapy. Go to therapy.
That took me forever to get around screwed. I was there for hours.
But that's how people have gotten through things.
Yeah.
Through LARPing because that example I used to really be terrified of spiders. Mm-hmm. I'm not so much anymore. I made a character who wasn't afraid of spiders.
Yeah.
And I got so immersed in being that now when I see a spider I'm like, oh okay, well let's relocate you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's just an example.
No, I gotcha.
It's we're still talking about immersion.
We are. I actually God, almost for a second I almost went on a second tangent, but yeah.
What I'm saying is immersion is forgetting who you are, and the lines between you and your character getting blurry.
Okay.
In a good way, because that can go bad. So easily.
Yeah, definitely.
We've seen it go bad.
We've seen it go bad. Yeah. What are you asked a question earlier, and we literally said let's save that.
What is something that you do that you think builds upon the immersion in your world?
In oh god.
In a game.
So I almost feel like with D&D story writing specifically, there's two kind of directions to go for that.
Okay.
You can rather do the non-physical immersion helpers.
Yeah.
Like the fact that in Saoirse the Yeti's breath leaf cools ale barrels, that whole thing. I feel like that helps with immersion.
That really does.
Because it's a small detail, but it's not something physical. But if I wanted to go physical immersion, I got like stupid little gold coins.
Yeah, that feels like a real thing.
Yeah.
Like that feels like yeah, that makes sense. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. And it's almost, we're almost about to have like a discussion about not having to drop money to immerse your players.
Oh my god, yeah, not at all.
Because I know when I was a young DM, I wanted to like full scale everything. I wanted like all of the cool
like
building blocks
and
like mountains of this fake gold.
Yeah.
You know, and I really wanted, I almost wanted to use physical items as a crutch.
Okay.
Which like they're not. If you want to use them, that's fantastic. But
Yeah.
in some senses, how I felt like with mine is I was like, oh, I need this stuff because I'm not a good DM yet, story writing wise.
Yeah.
You know?
I see. I know exactly what you mean because I kind of feel like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what I do, something that I would say like I use as kind of like not a crutch, but like a very helping tool is I find character art out there on Google
all the time.
I'll like search Wild West D&D character. Boop, and I'll get like 60 like OCs, and it's like cool. I'm using that face.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like it's legal because I'm not making money off of this.
And it's also, it's not like you're like, hey, this is my character I made.
Exactly. No, I just used the face of that character to be like, this is this character.
Honestly, this is a little side tangent, but you know what the one of the best breakthroughs I ever had with designing characters and how they look? Actors.
Yeah.
Like once I had that breakthrough of being like, he doesn't have to be a D&D art character. It can be an actor. Like both are fine, but like that's just a little thing.
Yeah.
Like one of my Star Wars characters. I think I've told you about him. I have a Star Wars OC who's a scout trooper.
Yeah.
Named what's the scout trooper? It's like ST321.
Yeah.
His nickname's Countdown, and his face is the guy from Supernatural.
Yeah, Jensen Ackles.
Yeah. Because I was just like, yeah, this is what he looks like. And everybody was like, okay.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely works. And getting back onto it.
Yeah.
So what you would say is having like the fake money and like the like pictures and everything that helps you build on your immersion.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I don't know, yeah. It's one of those things that, like, you can help the party be more immersed with stuff like this, but also, like, not everybody can afford stuff like this. A pack of these coins was, like, 30, 40 bucks.
Ooh.
How
many did you get in a pack?
I don't remember. But, like, the physical stuff is really cool. And if you can, go for it, but you don't have to have that to have an immersive game.
That's true.
You know?
All of my games are like online.
Yeah.
So like it's hard to I can't have that physical stuff because no one's ever in the room with me. I don't think anyone has ever been in the room with me while DMing until you and I moved in together.
Yeah.
But like I think what I do is I use the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
I play music in the background.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation. I'll like have like 6 tabs pulled up of different songs for like different situations. And like I'll have them play while I'm talking over the microphone.
Yeah.
I'll do cool creepy shit like that, and I'll use like sound effects. I that's the oldest trick in the book.
Oh yeah.
Back when people were popping tapes in.
Yeah.
Like
putting in Led Zeppelin's.
Exactly. An immigrant song while they're fucking just like going to the final battle.
Yeah. I like to use music. I like to use ambient stuff.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes music fits during combat, I think, but for my games, I don't like running music during other encounters.
I will say I ran a game with my group where we went through the mines. And like you've been through that adventure, you know what it was like. The whole time I was talking, I had pulled up playing over the microphone with me talking, like creepy ambient mine noises with whispering and howling, and I was like, this is perfect. And they were like, that set the tone so much. I was spooked.
I have I just got my players out of the plane of water, the realm of the Ocean King, and it was I typed in like dark underwater ambience, and there was like distant whale sounds.
That's so
and it
cool.
was like it was spooky.
That's so spooky. I love making my games spooky.
Yeah. But yeah, no, music's great. I used to use Sirenscape.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was like this program on the iPad, and it was cool. It had a bunch of music, but it also had like sound effects.
That is cool.
And it had the Wilhelm scream.
Of course.
Because of course.
I
don't know, yeah, because in the terms of like a D&D game, There's only so much the DM can do.
That's true.
Honestly.
At some point, it does become, like, say the DM's doing everything he can, and the game's still not working.
Yeah.
Like, there comes to the point where the players gotta eat something. Like, they gotta at least, like, if they're not, like, they gotta play along, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're here for the same reason. Come on.
What are your thoughts on excluding tabletop role playing, excluding LARPing, just in the sense of a story writer and world builder. Okay. How would you get the reader immersed in like a story?
In mine, I've written the most for like the orcs and the viper folk, and I would really just kind of like, the first thing I would do is try to make those, like, these cultures feel like real things. Mm-hmm. So I would research actual cultures that I would like to kind of like base them on a little bit. Okay. Where I take bits and pieces and just put them in its own thing. Yeah. Like the viper folk, their like whole culture is like a mixture of the Fremen from Dune and a mixture of just like Wild West in a town, like outskirts of town culture. Like they lived like kind of like frontiersmen, but in the desert. I gotcha. Yeah, they're like this weird intersection of the two. Yeah. And so that kind of, the fact that those things already existed kind of gave me like a template. To use for details. You almost have to like, it'd be so hard to immerse somebody in a setting or culture in the story writing that has no real life equivalent. That's true. Yeah. You know. Exactly. It's interesting to think about. Mm-hmm. Like we don't know the real culture of Coruscant in Star Wars because there's nothing like that in real life. There isn't. That's true. There's nothing to that scale. The closest thing would be like New York City or something. I guess so. But even then, like it's not the same. Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, cool. Like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm like trying to come up with another example, no, and like I have it, but it's not. I don't have access. It's just your computer's going no. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but like, it's interesting to think about. Trying to immerse somebody in something that wholly exists in only your brain, and that's why a lot of people don't do it. Yeah, there's a lot of cultures in different worlds that are very much based off of a real world culture. Like in Dune, the Fremen are based a lot off of a desert dwelling people in fucking like the Middle East. You know what's weird? You know what's besides accent, what one of the kind of equivalents would be? Dwarves and elves. Because at its core, what culture are elves really emulating? I can't think of it off the top of my head. I don't know. Well, so dwarves and elves are from Norse mythology, right? So from a ton of mythologies. A ton of different mythologies, mostly in the northern area. When you're thinking of like dwarves as they are in most popular media, fantasy, those are Norse dwarves. Yeah. But like, so that's where you got to think about those original tales. Yeah. Where those original like stories about the dwarves and the elves came from those people. That they could have been modeling them off of a culture that like existed at the time. Exactly, and it's just gone now. That's really damn. That's here's your high thought for the day. Think about how many cultures, how many people, how many what different races of people who existed but are no longer, who are gone. Like cultures completely gone. You're completely like the dwarves and elves. There could have been a race of tree-dwelling people that lived. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Now you're getting it. But but think about it this way: like, there's a real world example of that that we have evidence of. Neanderthals. Yeah. A completely different race of sapien. Yeah. And yet they were just like us. They were a bit louder, a bit bigger, but like we could speak with them, we could communicate. We even fucked them. Yeah. But I mean, like we're not even them. We are the mixture child race of. What am I saying? I sound like I'm on fucking Ancient Aliens.
You got so far off subject.
I'm so deep. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm gonna cut all of that out.
Absolutely not. It's going in. That's a Patreon exclusive, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh no! That sounded like I was going on one of those fucking like conspiracy things.
I was there with you.
But,
like I was like,
everything I was saying was completely factual.
No, I
But we have evidence to the contrary.
Immersion.
Immersion.
Not being able to tie like in-game, in-story, whatever's to real culture, almost kind of unhelps.
It's a detriment.
It's a detriment. Thank you.
to your immersion.
To immersion. That's just an interesting like thing to think about. You
Yeah.
know?
It really is. What is something that you think breaks immersion almost immediately? Like,
Oh man.
like it's a little thing that
Yeah.
someone wouldn't even like think. It's not like pulling out the phone and just be like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
because that would easily
Right.
just take you out of
It's
it.
in like LARP terms.
Yeah.
You can use your phone while playing D&D.
Oh, definitely. No one's gonna give a shit.
Or I guess like reading.
But yeah, it's just like
Little thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think. What, do you have one?
Yeah, I do have
Yeah,
one.
you go first.
For me, it's when people don't really speak like time period.
Yeah.
Wise. And I'm not like saying like thou must roll with thine.
Yeah.
No, it's just like when someone has like a like say they have a dwarven rogue, and they just walk up and have the guy go, "Hey, dude, what's up?"
Yeah.
Like that breaks it for me. It's like, okay, that's, I mean, like people don't talk like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think for me, I do a lot of voices and accents and stuff. You know this, but like, I don't think mine's voice related.
It's like it doesn't even necessarily have to be voice related or accent. It's just like, what are you're saying? Hey, dude, what's up?
No, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got nothing. I don't know. I don't know what breaks my immersion.
Okay.
Because I don't think I've ever had it happen a lot. At least in LARP, is the primarily like that's LARPing is where I hear the most immersion breaking talk because people want to be immersed.
Well, yeah, they want to be immersed, but like you're also hanging out with your buds
Exactly.
that you don't see for like a month.
Once a month. But I think that's where I hear the most complaints, and that's kind of where I'm trying to think of what does break my immersion.
Yeah, like
And
besides
honestly-
someone just like pulling out their phone.
And honestly, you know what the biggest one was, at least for Dystopia Rising? Damage calling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? That's gone.
I know, yeah.
Like-
I could have gone with seeing people with their phones and like chatting out of character. I'm like, whatever, I can just ignore that. But I'm actively a part of combat.
That's true.
And I have to go,
I see where you're coming
three.
from. But like they don't do that anymore, which
Yeah,
is
I know.
great. It's so fun. But I feel what that is. I think that is what reminded me we were playing a game.
Yeah.
Is like by calling damage and skills.
Yeah.
Like obviously you gotta call skills. Like I don't see any way you couldn't.
Right.
Unless someone gets hit with a packet that has like a note on it.
It's a paralyzed bug.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, I can't think of a way that my immersion can be broke during D&D, unless it's the DM.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't feel like I can get my immersion broken by another player if I'm a player at the table. When I'm a DM, I'm just, I don't know, I don't really care to be immersed as a DM.
Okay. That was actually going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in stories, in like books and stuff,
Okay.
whenever I read like, I don't know, lore or books or whatever, it's always when the writing feels a little young adult
Yeah.
for me. Like young adult books and like children's fantasy books have never really been immersive to me.
Okay.
And I think while stuff like Tolkien, like big blocks of text describing everything, that's where I find my immersion in books. But yeah, when the writing is written for children,
yeah.
or like young adults, I'm not immersed.
Okay. So you mean like where it like...
That was a very long explanation.
Yeah. Do you mean like where it uses like language?
I guess
that would be more young adult? Where
Yeah.
it's like, instead of saying like, he was wholeheartedly melancholy, it would say like, he was totally sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example. I think the Percy Jackson books
Yeah?
are kind of written. I've never read them, but the reason I haven't is because somebody told me they were kind of written like that.
I kind of disagree.
Okay.
I think Percy Jackson does not take place when
Right.
it takes place from the perspective of a young adult. From I think Percy Jackson, he's like 15 in the books. I could be wrong. Put that number up here, but I think it is written in the way it's supposed to be perceived.
Okay.
It's not.
It's also not a problem just with Percy Jackson. It's a problem with other books, like lesser known fantasy books will kind of have that very, like, they're trying to teenage it up so like the kids can. I know. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah. No, I think I get what
I
you're
really
saying,
wish
though.
I had a specific book example.
Yeah.
But I don't off the top of my head.
I know I say this a lot, but you should read Dune.
Yeah.
Dude, I like for someone who loves world building as much as you do.
Yeah.
You would bow at Frank Herbert's feet, dude.
Okay.
You really got to read Dune.
Okay.
Um.
But it's like the R.A. Salvatore books.
Yeah.
Like the Dritz stuff. His writing, it's very obvious that it's meant for more adults.
Yeah.
And I think that almost translates into more immersion for me.
Okay. I get what you're saying now, because like I have gone back and read the Hunger Games books.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, these were towards me when I was a kid.
Yeah. And like there's nothing wrong with that. But as like an adult, I'm like this no longer immerses me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about, like, it's like certain content, you don't dislike it.
Yeah.
Like
it's just not for you.
Something you used to like. It's like it's just not for you anymore. That's how I was very specifically with Game Grumps. I love Game Grumps. I was one of the original fucking lovelies, dude.
Yeah.
But like, there came a point in time where I was like, all right, I just wasn't watching them anymore, and it was just like they're still making the same great content. It's just not for me anymore.
People grow out of content
All the time.
That sounds like a Mac Chats discussion.
Maybe that could be.
Yeah, but for reading, young adult language. For LARP, it's damage calling, and then I'm mostly a DM.
Yeah.
So
you and I don't ever get to experience immersion breaking.
No. So I as a DM, I don't necessarily want to be immersed because it's almost impossible to be, because you're like having to look up stats and numbers and stuff, and it's like
you're the storyteller.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm fine. I take that title.
We have both been like, wow, we couldn't find a group, so we have gracefully like put on the Infinity Gauntlet ourselves. Going through.
Yeah. But yeah, what about you?
What about me?
What I forgot the question. I just wanted
what breaks your immersion?
Yeah.
For me, like I was saying, it was the like hey dude, what's up?
Okay.
Where people don't like at least put some effort into being a character that isn't a teenager.
Yeah. Cuz I don't.
And I get some people are bad at role playing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's totally fine to be bad at role playing.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's more a problem with me than anyone else.
Yeah.
It's like I like it when people put a little bit of effort in.
I get that because I'm on your side.
Okay.
It's like if you can be bad at role playing.
Yeah.
But if you're going to a role playing game a lot, like we do DR.
Yeah.
Then like you probably already like put a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to role play, don't you? Like that's why you're going to a role playing game.
Exactly. That it's in the name.
Yeah.
I feel that way too.
It feels a little toxic and gatekeepy. Like, don't come to my LARP unless you can role play.
And
but
that's not what we're saying.
That's not what we mean.
We're just saying we're just frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
And like it's our fault that we're frustrated.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
100% our fault.
Yeah.
Covering our asses
it's just,
so hard.
No, but it is though. It's just the way that like we react to it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we might need. Did we just go through therapy? Like,
we're changing the name of the show. Hi, therapy.
There's a dude on TikTok. He's called the Therapy Gecko.
Yeah.
He dresses up gecko fucking onesie.
Yeah.
Like has green face paint, and he puts his number on TikTok and like lets people call in and like say stories and ask how he feels about it.
Oh.
So like sometimes he'll be like, yeah, that bitch deserved it, or like he'll just give like the worst therapy advice.
Nice.
I'm cutting that right out.
Okay.
But
yeah, like
it's bad role playing breaks my immersion.
Okay.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's nothing that can be done about that.
Right.
I can't. But like, would it be rude of us to like be like, hey man, how do you feel about roleplay? And like when like talking to them and being like, do you want me to like help you out? I want some tips.
I don't think it is unless you're like pushy about it or like toxic about it. Because
Yeah.
I have a couple players in my game that aren't role players.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I've been like, hey, do you want? If I give you more role play, will you accept it? Is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable role playing? And they're like, not really. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And like that was the end of the discussion. And
that's all you can do.
And like, that's where it goes back to what we talked about in one of our YouTube, like the previous series on D&D. You got to have that session 0, and you got to trust your players to also be like not toxic.
Yeah, I was going through that with the Cyberpunk one that I'm about to run. I had that session 0 and like just got everybody on the same page, and like we did that. We like matched each other's, and everybody seemed like really excited and genuinely there for it. So like that kind of gave me the whew, okay.
Yeah. And it's something like part of that session 0 is, hey, how do you guys get immersed?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my players do a lot of reading and a lot of writing, and they're like, oh, I like a lot of description. So on my party, I throw in a little bit more description. Like everything about storytelling, especially in a D&D sense, is about asking people like, hey, not only what do you want to play, how do you want to play, how do you have fun, what immerses it. What
You got it, dude.
What gives you immersion juice?
Yeah, like that is super important, and I do the same thing in LARP. I know we were talking about LARP a lot, but it's LARP is a very big part of immersion,
and it's a very big part of world building and story writing and everything.
That's one thing I do is that like if I role play with someone. And like I can tell that I'm gonna be role playing with like this person's character for a while. Not like in that sitting, but like example, one of my characters met a character who's a postman in game who took him under his wing. Yeah. So my character's now learning to be a postman. Postmen are like it's a whole different thing. It's like Kevin Costner, the postman. For context. But I then sent a message to that player and was like, hey man, like what do you like about my character? Yeah.
What's the plan?
How do you like how my character treats yours? What is the plan here?
Right.
Like how would you best role play with my character?
Yeah. And you see, that's where it comes down to a discussion that I think we're both on the same side of. Yeah. Immersion versus comfort.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing in LARP, and it's a thing in D&D. I feel like. To a degree, This episode's so far removed from like story writing, like just world building and story writing.
We're just talking about the concept of immersion.
But like, I've seen that discussion happen so many times, especially playing an aggressive character like I do in LARP.
Oh yeah, you do.
Like, I've had to have discussions with people, and I know people that I've had to have the discussion of, I yell at you in character. My character's very aggressive towards yours. Yeah. And then, like, if you're somebody done that with before, I would usually be like, you cool with being yelled at? Like, go out of character and be like, you cool with this? And they're like, yeah, sure. Or
I have seen you do this.
Yeah. Or if they're like, nah, don't yell at me. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I go somewhere else. Yeah. And, like, some people would argue that that's immersion breaking.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the line is almost drawn when it comes to that, because your immersion is not more important than somebody else's comfort.
Exactly. We are on the very same page as that.
Yeah.
It's like that whole thing that happened. Yeah. Long story, not gonna explain.
We deal with that a lot more in LARP, but
so much more.
I do feel like it can go into D&D because of, like I said, I have a couple players that don't feel comfortable role playing.
Yeah.
Their comfort doesn't, like, outrank my immersion or my other player's immersion. If one of my players was like, hey, can you get them to roleplay? I'd be like, no, like you can have a separate discussion with them.
Yeah.
I've already talked to them. They're not comfortable with it. Please drop it. You know, that player would that player's immersion was not more important. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no one's immersion is more important than anyone's
Right.
comfort.
That took so long to explain. How long have I been talking?
I don't know, man.
Why is it such a hard concept to understand for some people? I don't know. I think that's it.
I feel like that's kind of a good episode.
Yeah. There's a lot to it, but like comfort doesn't equal immersion. Physical items don't equal immersion. I feel like you could, as a DM,
immersion isn't here.
It's in here. In here.
It's in here. Well, like, if you're gonna take any lessons from this, it's that no one's immersion is more important than anyone's comfort.
Right.
And that, like,
as a world builder, we kind of agree that like detail makes a world
as much
immersive.
It's not even like the big details. I don't care about Methuselah's 100th birthday where the hunted red ones gathered. I don't care about that. I care, what do people use to wash their clothes? Yeah. Like,
but that's also intimidating as a world builder, I feel.
I don't have too many details like that. I think I have one, and that's the Deadstone poker tables. Yeah. Example on immersion in world building. I can't stress this enough, read Frank Herbert's Dune. The 1965 novel has like so much little details, down to like words from a language that get used, down to like before each chapter, at the head of every chapter is an excerpt from a future history book describing parts of the events.
That's pretty cool.
Of the book you're reading, and it relates to the chapter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's such a little thing. It's a history book about what's happening.
Yeah.
And like, it's a great example of world building and immersion.
Yeah, for sure.
Frank Herbert's Dune, everybody.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we'll end it there.
Yeah.
Good talk.
Yeah.
My mic was out like 5 minutes ago, so I've been trying to project more into yours.
Oh, cool. We'll either have this audio or the shitty boom mic audio.